Hello, welcome to Board Games with Niramas. I'm Joseph or Niramas, and it's time to do a top 25 Keyforge cards in Age of Ascension. So we're going to talk about Age of Ascension, the second set for Keyforge. It was released in June, late May, June of this year, 2019. We're just about to get the third set, the Worlds Collide, coming in a few weeks. I'm really excited for that. I will actually be able to pick up my first decks, I think, at Spiel in just a few days, so that's going to be awesome. But yeah, I've been thinking about doing this for a while, and I do, this is not something I could do right away at the release, obviously, because I need to play the actual set a bunch before I can, pick out 25 cards that is my favorite. I'll do the same for Worlds Collide, but that's going to be like, I don't know, early next year. So anyway, let's get started. We are going to start with number 25, and I'm going to talk through these fairly quick. So, number 25 is Gravid Cycle. This is a Untamed card, giving you a free amber. And it's an Omega card, so after you play it, end the step, and when you play it, return a card from your discard pile to your hand. This is really good. Getting cards back from your discard pile to your hand is awesome. Now, the only downside to this one, of course, is that it's Omega, so after you get that card back, you can't play it right away because your turn ends. But I do like it. Good card, and yeah, I don't think there's much to say about it, really. It's fairly simple, but it can really, you can really set up things and do another good Untamed turn after this, so let's head to number 24. Number 24 is Anguish. This is a creature, 6 power. For each damage on him, your opponent's keys cost +1. This is a cool one. He's fairly strong, and you do want him to get damaged, or sort of at the right time. It's good if you can get him out there, sitting around and so on. Maybe you can reap with him and so on. You don't really want to fight unless you are at the right position to do that, because when your opponent goes up to a check position, then of course you want to have some ways to give this guy some damage. Could be some direct damage card that you can play, or of course if you can fight with him, it's even better. Fight some smaller guys, getting maybe 3 damage on him. If you have some sort of heal effect later on, that could be great as well. But yeah, Anguish is cool. Really like him in this, and that's why he's my number 24. Next up is a sort of controversial one, Archimedes, 2 power, elusive. Each of his neighbors gains destroyed archive this creature. And this is a card that has been errated. So at first, it was sort of, the ruling was that if you had a board wipe, then you get to sort of decide in which order they die. So all of your cards, except Archimedes, would be archived because, they will die in a certain order. Now they have changed that. It's been errated, so now it is just his neighbors. If a board wipe happens, it's just his neighbors that get archived. It's still really good. Really like this card. I mean, he has elusive, so he has a better chance of staying out for a while. And you can put some really important card next to him that, you want to get into the archives. Maybe it has a play effect. Maybe it's something that you really want to have around. So, yeah, Archimedes is good, and that's why it's my number 23. And here we have Glimmer. This is a better way of returning a card from your discard pile to your hand. This is 1 power creature, alpha. You have to play it at the first thing you do at the turn, but that's not an issue because, why not? You're getting a card back to your hand, and some other good Untamed card that you can play during that turn. So yeah, Glimmer is good. Glimmer is, of course, better than the one earlier here, but then again, it's only 1 power creature, so it's not going to really do much else, I guess. I mean, maybe you can get a reap of him or something, but most of the time I think he's just, doing his play effect, basically. And yeah, this could be a good, thing to put next to Archimedes, for example, because you do want this guy back. So that's Glimmer. And at 21, we have Bren the Fanatic from Shadows. 3 power, skirmish. When you play him, your opponent gains 1 amber, but when he's destroyed, you steal 3 amber. I think some people would put this higher up on the list. It's kind of hard to do this list as well, but I mean, I do like him, but he's sort of, he's okay. He's good in most decks, but he's really good in a deck where you have a way to destroy him as well. Because since he has skirmish, you can't just destroy him by fighting, right? So you kind of need some direct damage, life for a life or something like that. Well, there's different ways to get rid of him. And, it's a good, steal 3 is a really good effect. So, I had to have Bren the Fanatic on here. Maybe you would like to have him higher up on the list. We'll see. Tell me in the comment section when you watch the video if you agree on my picks. But that is Bren the Fanatic. Let's keep going. And at number 20, it's a really situational card, Binate Rupture Alpha. So you can only play this at the start of your turn. And when you play it, each player gains amber equal to the amber in the pool. They double their amber. Yeah, this is really situational, of course. I mean, most of the time you would play this when you have like a few amber and your opponent doesn't have any amber. There's also some situations where you want to play this one. I have one deck where I, play this when we both have, or at least my opponent has, a lot of amber, and then I can play the interdimensional graft and get all the amber that are left over when my opponent forges the key. If it's the first or second key, that's really good. So Binary Rupture has some really nice uses, and it's really nice combo with that graft card. But it could be good anyway to have. I don't want to have more than one in my deck though, but it could be good in some situations to use this as well. You might end up discarding this at some points, but yeah, that's why it's my number 20. And we have Merkins. 2 power play. Choose a random card in your opponent's archive or the top card of your opponent's deck. Play that card as if it were yours. This card is fun, most of all. I mean, this is like, it's sort of like a wild wormhole in some sense that you don't know. It could be really good at sometimes, it could be terrible at sometimes, so it's sort of a gamble, but I like this kind of effects. I think this is a fun card. I really like that you especially, a random card in your opponent's archives. A lot of times, your opponent might just have one card in their archive. And that's obviously some kind of good card, since they put it there. Depending on how it ended up, there's some effects could have put it there without them choosing it. But anyway, I do like Merkins for that effect. And then he's a 2 power creature. You might get a reap of him, so on. And it's just so cool. I just love this sort of chance random effect. It does make it fun. And number 18, from Mars, Hypnobeam. Play, gain control of an enemy creature. This is the same thing, basically, that was in this earlier on as well, and it's still around, where you just take over an enemy creature. I mean, this is also, well, this is one of those cards that are always good. It's always good, I mean, to gain control of an enemy creature. Sometimes it's really, really good, and most of the time it's great. Just take someone, maybe get a taunt guy over to your side, maybe get some good effect, or, it's just overall good to have Hypnobeam in your Marsh, side of the deck. And at 17, we have the card I mentioned earlier, Life for a Life, getting a free amber, and play, sacrifice a creature to deal 6 damage to another creature, basically. So this is so useful. There's a lot of creatures you put out for the play effect, or, like a bad penny or whatever, that's, you don't really care about it being out there and so on. So, being able to sacrifice some small creature, or maybe sacrifice a big creature that's really damaged, that, only has like a life left, it's going to die anyway. Yeah, there's such a good uses for Life for Life. Direct damage, I love that. Just taking out some other creature. You can take up most of the cards in the game with this, most creatures, with 6 damage. And yeah, it's so useful. Life for a Life, that's my number 17. And at 16, we have Professor Sutter from Logos, 2 power. Reap, draw a card for each friendly Logos creature. This guy can get really crazy. At some points, I've been drawing, 5-6 cards using him. I have some deck that has 2 of this. I mean, that's just so crazy. The only issue really with him is that, why he didn't make it to the top 10 is because he's really a target. People will see this and they will go after him. He doesn't have elusive. You need some way to protect him. Direct damage can take him out easily. It's kind of easy to get rid of him. So that's why he's not higher up, because people can't let you have this guy out. It doesn't work, because if you do, then you just keep drawing and drawing, and that you can't let that happen. But I love card draw. That's why he's on here. I love card draw, and I love how you can. I mean, sometimes you can have him out, as your only creature, and your opponent might not care so much because it's only got one guy. But then on your next turn, you might have like 4 Logos creatures you can pop out there, because they don't need to be ready. It's only Professor Sutter that needs to be ready to, make use of the other creatures, right? So yeah, he's awesome. My number 16. And at 15, from Untamed, Dusk Witch, 1 power Omega, elusive, and your creatures enters play ready as a passive effect. This is such a good card. But again, it's hard to get her to stay alive. If I see a Dusk Witch coming out on my opponent's side, it's like my main focus. I need to take out the Dusk Witch any way I can. And she's elusive, so it could be a little bit tricky, but you gotta get rid of this one. I mean, it has Omega, so after you play it, you end the step, and then on your next turn, you can play another house, and they all come out ready, and that's just so good. That's just amazing effect. But yeah, it's hard to keep her alive, but if you can, Dusk Witch is really a good one. And number 14, from Logos, Helper Bot, 1 power play. You may play 1 non-Logos card this turn. And yeah, Helper Bot is just awesome. You You play, I mean, there's so many ways you can use this. You can set up combos that wouldn't happen otherwise. And that's why it's so great. Tell me in the comment section how you like to use Helperbot. There's so many cool things you can do. You can go logos, and then you can put in some shadow card to steal. You might need that, but you might have a bunch of logos card in your hands. You want to play logos that turn, but you need to do some amber controlling. There's so many ways to use Helperbot, and that's why it's my number 14. And at number 13, another fun card from Shadows. 2-power Scowly Caper. Skirmish, and the thing is, Scowly Caper enters play under your opponent's control and can be used as if it belonged to any house. At the end of your turn, destroy one of his neighbors. So you give this, you sort of play this and give it to your opponent, and your opponent gets a skirmish creature, so it's hard for him to get rid of it. But the thing is, at the end of your turn, you destroy one of its neighbors. So you can just, clear out your opponent's battle line, basically, unless your opponent can find a way to get rid of this guy. This card is so much fun. I only have it in like one deck, but I mean, I have so much fun with that deck because just because of this effect here. Love it. I mean, this list is mostly for what I think is fun, of course. There's no like statistical calculations going on here to see which card is the best and all that. I'm not really interested in Excel files. This is all about what I like to play. So this is my number 13. And at number 12 we have from Sanctum, 5-power Barrister Joya, 1 armor. Enemy creatures cannot reap. This is just such a good night. It's just out there, and your enemy cannot reap while it's out there. And I mean, 5 power, 1 armor, that's pretty strong. You might be able to have this one out for a while and just stop your opponent from reaping. I mean, there's of course other ways, you get to free amber and all that. There's other ways to get amber, but a lot of the amber in Keyforge comes from reaping. And, depending on the deck and all that. So this could really mess up your opponent. Really like it, Barrister Joya. And at 11, just outside the top 10, we have Punctuated Equilibrium from Untamed. Each player discards their hand, then refills their hand as if it were the end of their turn. This is a card that I'm actually a bit afraid of. Several of my good decks, my favorite decks, are based on me saving some cards. Getting some, important key cards. That's kind of a funny name, but anyway, that I need to save on my hand. I need to have them for the right time to use them, right? But this one can just mess that up. And then they go to the discard, and all of a sudden I have to, go through my whole deck to get back my doorstep to heaven or whatever I rely on. So Punctuated Equilibrium can be really nasty. I think, I mean, it's not just that. You can mess up your opponent's plans, but it's also, of course, you have an Untamed hand. You play a bunch of Untamed cards, then you play this one, and then you will refill your hand and keep going. So you can keep, your turn will be longer. You can play more cards if you're lucky to draw more Untamed cards, of course. So yeah, this one is really cool. This is one that actually you could use together with Helperbot. So if you have a bunch of Logos card left in your deck, maybe, you can see how many cards you have. You can figure that out. And then this one could really be a good one. So that's why it's my number 11. And we're into the top 10. This is a new favorite for me, really. Bramo from Brobnar, 4 power, 1 armor. When you play him, deal 2 damage to each enemy flank creature. And by himself, of course, he's strong. He get good play effect. You can get rid of some smaller creatures if they're on the flanks. You can fight later on with him or reap or whatever. 4 power. But he's really good together with another card coming later here as well that, they can combo off really good together. So yeah, I do like Bramo a lot. That's why it's my number 10. And did I mention I like card draw? Well, with Igor from Logos, 2 power, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 to your hand and discard the others. You get to draw a card and you get to cycle through your deck faster. You can set up things, you can plan for things. I think Igor is so much fun, and this is the first time when this came in the second set. That was the first time in Keyforge that you got this. I mean, this is sort of a somewhat standard thing in most card games that, yeah, you draw 3 cards and pick 1 to keep. That exists in a lot of games, and I like that they introduced that to Keyforge as well. I like how that, you can cycle through your deck faster. I have a deck with 4 of these, which is kind of crazy. It's been doing really well online and so on. So yeah, I do like Igor a lot. It had to be in my top 10. And here's another real favorite for me these days. Grump Buggy from Brobnar. It's an artifact with a free amber on it. And your opponent keys cost +1 for each friendly creature with power 5 or higher. Your keys cost +1 for each enemy creature with power 5 or higher. So you want to have this one in a deck, of course, where you have a bunch of big Brobnar and Sanctum and so on, guys that are plus, above 5 power or higher. Or in one of my decks, my favorite deck actually, I have this one together, and with Untamed, and I have the Pampaka Anga that makes all his neighbors to the right of him gets +2 power, which means even smaller guys become a power 5 or higher creature. So, and this can be really crazy. I played with that deck against another deck that also had this one, which means the effect is doubled. I think a key costed like, I don't know, 30 or something from your opponent. That's just insane. So this is so good. I mean, the only downside to this, of course, is if you get it in a deck where you have about, if you meet a deck that has more big creatures than you have, then that's an issue, because it will affect you as well. But yeah, in my favorite deck there, I also have Grasping Vines in Untamed, so I can pull this off if I need to, which is great as well. Ground Buggy is so good. And at 7, we are back to Mars. Mars really got a, buff in the set. And here we have the Collector Worm, 2 power, 5 armor, fight. Archive the creature Collector Worm fights. If that creature leaves your archives, put it in its owner's hand instead. So this is like the Zookeeper, right? But this is easier to keep alive out there because of all that armor. And it can fight, most of the creatures out there and stay alive. But of course, it has to stay alive. If it dies, then the fight effect never happens. But you can fight like a elusive creature, and no damage is dealt, but you get to put that creature in your archive. The only downside to this is, of course, if you have a deck with both Mars and Logos, since Logos really has a lot of archiving going on in Age of Ascension. You don't really want to archive enemies at the same time then, because then you will give them back to your enemy. But maybe in the end game, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, most of the time, if I'm looking through a deck and I see this one, I like to have 2 of this. I don't want to have a bunch of archiving myself. So Collector Worm, my number 7. And at number 6, we have another Mars card, which is so handy. You can use this for so many things. It's an action card, 3 Amber, Mars first. Play, ready and use a friendly Mars creature. There's so many ways you can use this really good. I mean, a lot of the Mars creatures, especially those that, like John Smith and a lot of those that were from the first set that are still in Age of Ascension, they have really good effects on them, but, they come out being exhausted and you can't use that effect, and they are pretty weak, so they might get killed before you actually get to use them. But with Mars first, you can play like a Zookeeper, for that matter, ready him right away, and then just reap and archive one of your opponents. So yeah, Mars first is so good. It's a simple effect, but it really changes the sort of quality of Mars, I would say. If you have like 1 or 2 of these in your Mars lineup, that can really help you out. And I mentioned this guy earlier, Pampaka Anga from Untamed, 5 power. Creatures to the right of Pampaka Anga in the battle line gets +2 power. This is a really good effect. I mean, both for keeping them alive and all that, but for fighting, yeah, it's so good. You just put this guy to the left, and then you can just, I like it. I like it so much. There's some cases, not that many cards, but there's a few cards in Age of Ascension that, can make it so that you can move around your opponent's creature. So if you have one of those, then, you can just move Pampaka Anga to the rightmost part of the battle line, and then he gets pretty much useless while he's still a 5 power creature. But yeah, but that doesn't happen that often. Most of the time, you can really use this to a good effect. And what I like to do is I like to place this one next, to the left of a taunt creature. So then he's a bit more protected, and the taunt creature that is protecting him also, of course, gets +2 power because he's to the right of Pampaka Anga. So love this creature. And now let's head to the next one. And here he is. I almost mentioned him earlier, but this is Bramo's best friend, of course. 6 power Dramonut from Brobnar. Play, fight, reap. Return a friendly giant creature to your hand. Awesome together with Bramo. Awesome together with Ganga Chieftain. And there's a combo that I know some people are annoyed by. It's a bit annoying, but if your opponent doesn't have any creatures and you have Dramonut and Ganga Chieftain, you can, you can get 5 Amber, I think, if I'm counting this correctly. Because, Dramonut goes out, he can, you can ready him with the Ganga Chieftain, then he can reap, and then when he reaps, he gets Ganga Chieftain back to your hand, and then you can keep doing that. Or with Bramo, it's even more fun, I think. Because with Bramo, this guy will, Bramo comes out, gives 2 damage to each flank creature, then Dramonut comes out, brings him back to your hand. And then if you have them both out there and you have Ganga Chieftain, you can do a lot of fun combinations with combo-wombo stuff. Dramonut is so much fun. Okay, so number 3. One of my favorite cards from the first set was Charet from this. But now we have In Sanctum, Obey the Grim. He has 4 power, 1 armor. So he has 1 more power than Charet and an armor. And he does the same thing, play, capture 3. Also, he has the effect to reap and discard an ember from himself, so that the opponent can't get it back when he eventually kills Evade. So he's a better version of Charette, and he's in Sanctum, and I think it's such a good card, such a good card. It's just one of those cards that I talked about earlier that I like to just keep in my hand, or archiving it, having it ready for when the opponent is about to forge a key. Then I can pull this guy out. Love to have a deck with like 2 or 3 of this. It's so handy to have Evade the Grim around. And at number 2 we have Exhume action, 3 amber. Play, choose a creature in your discard pile. You may play that creature as if it belonged to the active house and was in your hand. And this is so good. This like, I mean, it's so high on my list because this is not situational. I mean, there's always you always want to do this, basically. Maybe not just in the beginning when you don't have a discard pile, but there's so many uses for this. There's so many uses. You can, you're playing this, you play Exhume, you can get something out there. You can get Evade the Grim out there if he's been killed, and he can capture again. There's like infinite, not infinite, but there's so many ways you can use this card to good effect. And it's a common card. I have decks with 2 of these in it. It can really help out. It's like having, another copy basically of one of those creatures you have in your deck, but you can choose which one it is after, especially at the, when you have a big discard pile. This is so useful. Wow, Lao Exhume. So let's head to the number 1. Okay, so number 1, and this wasn't even hard. As soon as I was gonna make this list, the first thing that popped up in my mind was from Mars, Martian Generosity, 3 amber. Play, lose all of your amber. Draw 2 cards for each amber lost. I like card draw, and I mean this card is it's insane. In the right deck, which is my favorite deck, I have one of these, and I also have the key abduction. So if I get to 4 or 5 amber, and then I play this, which gets me an amber first of all, so I get 1 more, and then I draw 10 or 12 or 14 cards. And it's a good chance that I draw that key abduction, which means I can just forge a key right away for free, basically. This is so good, this Martian Generosity, and I have it in another deck, or like 2 other decks as well. And in one of those, it's just a way to draw cards, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. So if I meet an opponent that has this one in his deck, I'll check the deck list. Then I get a bit worried when my opponent is up to like 4 or 5 amber, because I know that this is coming. This is such a good card. Martian Generosity, my favorite card from Age of Ascension. And yeah, that was it. Tell me in the comment section what you thought about this video. Do you agree on my picks? What are your favorites? And don't forget to like the video as well. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And I'll be posting more Keyforge videos coming up here, because we have the new set coming, the 3rd set. Hopefully in just a few days I will post some unboxings of new decks. So I'm excited for that. I hope you are as well. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening or morning whenever you're watching. Take care. Bye bye.
Be like Draco. Follow Board Games with Niramas on Facebook at BGW Niramas.